Um, speaking of old media,
Yes.
let's talk about the theater
Yes. Noise
with
is
our
off.
with our yes with our real classic movie Noise is Off.
Yes. When you said you were watching this, and I immediately had to go and watch it because I know you wanted to add it as another classic review, and I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. Because I actually had the pleasure of seeing a production of this on Broadway in the early 2000s.
Nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
Yes. It was a lot of fun. And it was with Patty LaPone and what was his name? Um, let's see. Uh, his last name is Gallagher. I'm doing a quick search trying to find it. Peter Gallagher. Peter Gallagher he's the Michael Caine character. He played the Michael Caine character in the stage version, but but yeah, that was fun to watch, and I would definitely say if you can see a stage version of uh, this production, I'd definitely do it because you'll have a fun time with it, and the movie is a fun time too.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the movie because then I have some questions about the stage production because I can see some
Yeah.
logistical difficulties.
Yeah.
So, Noise is Off is it's interesting. Carol Burnett gets top billing on this movie poster I found. Um, although this is definitely a Michael Caine joint.
Yeah. Oh, you know why she's top billed?
Hmm.
The cast is in alphabetical order.
Oh, is that all? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Okay. See. Okay. So I admit, Carol Burnett. I'm largely unfamiliar with her work. I know what a big deal she is, but it's kind of like how somebody from from the next generation after us might look at Jay Leno. Almost feels like a step down from what Carol Burnett had at her peak, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's just like it
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
name you have heard of. You might be like I don't recognize her face in this one.
Oh, yeah.
I only realized it when I was looking it up afterwards.
Well, yeah, she was she had her own show back in the 60s
Yeah.
and 70s.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. My parents have raved about her.
Oh yeah, mine
Like,
too. Yeah.
she was a touchstone. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that we I don't think we can understand how big of a deal she was at the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Um
But
but yeah, yeah.
yeah, so basically, it is a British somewhere between a British sex romp and a British uh, play of manners that they're putting on. And Michael Caine is the suffering director dealing with a bunch of complete ignoramuses as actors.
Yeah. Yeah, so you got Carol Burnett playing Dottie, and she's just like, okay, do I do okay, I put the receiver down, I take the sard. No, you put the receiver down, leave the sardines, and you take the newspaper.
Right, like she just can't keep any of her blocking straight.
Right, yeah, and the rest of the cast, you had like Gary, who was played by the late John Ritter. Um, and he's actually in a relationship with Carol Burnett's character, which is like, ooh,
A little bit of robbing the cradle there, but
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
his so everybody has like one quirk. His quirk is that he is awful at thinking extemporaneously.
right, yeah,
Like if he has to ad lib, it's like the thing with the
yeah.
thing.
Well, it's just like the
Yeah, exactly.
no, I don't. Of course, he's partnered with Brooke, who's played by Nicolette Sheridan, and she spends about 90% of the movie in her underwear.
Uh, I guess it's a keeping for somebody who went on to be a desperate housewife.
Yes. And her whole thing is that she's just, she's the stereotypical dumb blonde, and
Yep.
whenever somebody bumps into her or she bumps into something, her contact lenses fly out.
Yep. So they're always trying to find that.
Mm-hmm. And then the other actors, you've got Frederick, who's played by again another late actor who's no longer with us, Christopher Reeve. And his whole thing is he's just he's just really dumb, and violence makes his nose bleed, and seeing blood
Right.
makes him lightheaded.
Yeah. The man is basically a big golden retriever.
Yes, that's a good way of describing him. Yeah,
Just very well meaning, wants to do well, dumb as a post.
yeah,
But he's earnest.
yes. And then he's partnered with Belinda, who's played by Mary Lou Henner. Most people remember her from Taxi. And what was her whole thing? She was just like,
She actually kind of had the least of anybody going on. Yeah, she was almost there as
yeah,
like an accessory to Christopher Reeve's character.
yeah, she was almost like just kind of there to like almost babysit him.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like she was
Yeah,
his handler.
yeah, and then and also in the cast of the play is Selden, played by Denholm Elliott, who, speaking of Indiana Jones, okay, go back to the Venn diagram there. Denholm Elliott was in Raiders and Last Crusade. He played Marcus Brody.
The other weird Venn diagram is that I believe this movie was also produced by Kathleen Kennedy.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And Frank Marshall as well, who's Kathleen Kennedy's husband. And of course, oh, hey, D Rhino, good to see you.
Hey man, got the
Um,
whole usual crew here tonight.
yes. Um, and of course, his whole thing is he's a drunk.
Yes.
And yeah, so as DB pointed out, you had Michael Caine playing Lloyd Fellows, the director, and yeah, he's basically herding cats.
Yeah. Right. The movie starts literally with a midnight, like what's supposed to be the dress rehearsal, but it's turned into the technical rehearsal because nothing will be quite ready in time.
Yes. And of course the whole time they're just trying to run through the lines, and some of the actors get confused, and then some of them are their egos get in the way and everything, um if you oh hey, Quantum Age Comics, good to see you.
Hello.
um and So it's just basically just a kind of like a comedy of errors, and then you have, of course, you also have, you get a little bit of the backstory with some of the characters, and of course, we forgot to mention the two backstage people. One of them was played by Julie Haggerty, who's most people remember from Airplane. Can't remember Poppy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
she just brings like, in both of those roles, and those are what I've seen her in.
yeah,
It's funny. It's like she's in a comedy, and she isn't necessarily funny herself necessarily,
yeah.
but she brings this desperate earnestness to her roles that were like it looks like she's about to burst into tears at any time. So it's like
Yes.
she's like a little comedic catalyst, like as things go wrong around her.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and Quantum Age says, "Oh, he missed the City Hunter." Well, you can always go back and rewind and watch it, or we'll upload the individual video on the channel later in the week. But yeah, and then last but not least, there's Tim, who's played by Mark Lynn Baker, and most people, I think, remember him from a sitcom from the 80s called Perfect Strangers, where he was kind of like the straight man on that show.
I know the name, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's kind of fallen into obscurity a bit. Most people actually remember the spin-off show from it, Family Matters.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that Family Matters was a spinoff of that one.
Yeah, yeah. Most
Hmm.
people don't. Yeah. But to get back to this movie, yeah. So and if you watch the stage version of it, this is the first act where they're doing the technical rehearsal, um, and in the stage version, the actor who plays the director is usually in the audience,
Okay.
in the back. That was where Peter Gallagher was when I went and saw it. And a little funny story. My mom actually, because we were sitting in the front part. I can't remember what not the balcony, mezzanine, I think. And my mom actually looked behind her and she saw him, because he had a microphone and he's doing the okay. No, you put this, you leave the sardines and you take the newspaper. And and my mom looked and saw him and he kind of looked at her and like, yes, it's really me. But and then but where it really kind of gets moving is in the second act, and that's when they do their production in Miami, because it's a touring production. They're going to like all these different cities, and of course the overarching movie is where Michael Caine is recounting the story to a homeless guy in New York.
Yeah. So it's basically, yeah. This is Michael Caine's perspective. You almost wonder if he's a totally reliable narrator or not. Then again, I guess things started going wrong when he wasn't around. But it's like,
yeah.
But it's like the first go around is first you have the technical rehearsal where you basically see the acts that they show the actors in. Like you never see the second act; it's always the first act.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, the first time they go through it in the technical rehearsal, it's pretty shaky, but they manage to pull it together for the real show, and then it goes all right. And then behind the scenes, jealousies flare up, and it's just totally awry. And was it Florida where it went totally awry? Yeah, Florida.
Yeah. Miami. Yeah.
Miami, yeah. And then by the time they get to New York, he's expecting it to be a complete flop.
Yes. Yeah, and although as bad as Miami was, it wasn't as bad as Cleveland.
Oh, that's right. And so this movie like breezes by very quickly. It's not that long. I think it's like what, 2 hours ish, something like that.
Yeah, hour and a half, 2 hours, somewhere. Yeah, 140, hour 41. Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like that. Like it feels shorter than it actually is, just because it's so breezy and quippy.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Because
yeah,
you get very few, like every time, the only breaths you really get in this thing are when they switch to a different venue.
right, yeah. Yeah, and I will say the stage version of it goes by really quickly too. Yeah. Because by the end of the first act, you're like, oh, it's already the intermission.
I find that's the case with a lot of stage plays. Like for some reason, the second act always. Maybe it's because as a viewer, you lose momentum with when you get into the second act. Like I almost never enjoy the second act of a live play as much as I enjoy the first.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I've been too trained by movies and TV where they don't have to let the gremlins that run the pixels take a break.
Right. Yeah.
But and so it's like it's hard. Like there is a plot to discuss, but it's more just like fodder for ridiculous comedic instances.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's all really quick too. Like something will happen in one instance, and then like 2 seconds later, you got something else going on over here, and yeah, you have to keep up with it. To get a full immersion of the experience.
Right. This is definitely not one to watch with your like looking at your phone. Like this is against the Netflix rule of, oh, maybe occasionally have the characters talk about the plot so people who aren't paying total attention could keep up with it.
Yeah, yeah. No, you got to be watching it. You got to be intent on it the whole time. um, And yeah, it's just it's got a lot of wacky silliness going on, a lot of physical comedy, and it's just yeah, it's just it's a fun movie to watch.
It's also kind of neat to see some performers like I don't think of Christopher Reeve as any sort of comedic actor,
Yeah,
so it's kind of interesting to see him in a role like that.
yeah, I can't think of too many comedies that he did. Um, Although Superman, he was not comedic, but he had that Boy Scout fun side to him. Um, but yeah,
Right,
yeah, it's yeah,
which he's kind of got here too. Now that I think about it, because
yeah,
his character he's the earnest one.
yeah, yeah. Um, and of course, John Ritter, bringing the physical comedy because uh, he was on a show in the '80s called Three's Company, and that was kind of what that was his whole shtick, was that he was like falling over the couch or falling over a table, and so a lot of it, quite a bit of him physical comedy from him in this movie.
Yep, man. This is just a good movie that's not immune to criticism, but it's like there isn't really a lot to criticize because it just everybody does a good job and it achieves its ends.
Yes, yeah, it did.
Uh,
Um,
the only thing I'll say is that I've been doing some at my real job. I'd been doing some training on some new hires, and so initially I was like, "No, this is kind of giving me some Vietnam flashbacks when everyone was being kind of helpless at first." But I got over that real quick.
yeah. Yeah, and I will say, like, with the quick humor and everything, I would say the advantage of seeing the stage version of this as opposed to watching the movie is that you get more of a sense of what's going on the stage as opposed to in the movie, because in the movie they had to, you have to like cut from one person to the other, and the stage version you can look over and see two people doing something over there, and then on the other stage you get two other people doing something completely different. um so but yeah, it's but yeah, but I enjoyed the movie. And I will say, also say too, one advantage is that the people who haven't seen the stage version, except for DB, uh, if you haven't seen the stage version, it might get a little, you might get a little frustrated with it, trying to keep up with everything. But all I can say is, well, you can just watch it again, and you'll see something that you didn't see the first time around.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the reason I ended up watching this was that a buddy of mine, it was his birthday, and this was his birthday choice.
No, all right, nice, yeah. One of the other things too that kind of took me by surprise was the movie was directed by Peter Bogdanovich, who he directed a movie that my parents have been kind of pestering me to watch, called The Last Picture Show, uh, with Jeff Bridges and Sybil Shepherd. So that might be a movie we have to we really may have to watch for the show at some point, or I do a solo review. But it's kind of he was kind of an interesting choice because he's mainly like he was really good friends with Orson Welles. So kind of that mentality of just I do things my own way kind of thing. But no, I thought he did the directing was solidly done here.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah,
I,
it's hard to find something to criticize a movie on.
yeah. It's. I guess I'm at a loss for words, which I usually like to blah blah blah, and that's yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
go
yeah,
watch it.
yes, go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I think of anything we reviewed this week. Strongest take. This is the one you'd watch if you just pick one thing.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I think we've said all we need